Hi everybody, this is Alchemist 2 and I'm back again with another book review. I just read Mind Wide Open, Your Brain and the Neuroscience of Everyday Life. This is written by Steven Johnson, who is also the author of Emergence, apparently. And I'm looking at the dust jacket. It's just talking about the drugs that comprise the brain in and of itself. I love the quotes that he uses here. He uses one from Franz Kafka. How pathetically scanty my self-knowledge is compared with, say, my knowledge of my room. There is no such thing as observation of the inner world as there is the outer world. And he talks about, what is the term he uses? I'm going to find it. Actually, I wrote it down. Qualia. Qualia is the brain's representation of both internal and external state. I didn't know what qualia was until I read this book, so it was very fascinating. And I love the chapter on laughter was my favorite chapter of all the chapters. And just the idea of how smiling in and of itself is a reflex. It's not a learned behavior, by the way, as some people originally thought. It talks about just the whole frustration of such things as dementia and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and just how complex the mind is and how difficult laughter in and of itself, jokes, that whole interplay is very multi-layered actually. And it talks about how fear works. He mentions 9/11 in here. So I'm not really sure when Mr. Johnson wrote the book, but 9/11 had happened, so apparently after 2001. Yeah, it's really quite an intriguing book. It's very short. He talks about ADD and ADHD, and he talks about autism, how people with autism seem to lack the facial cues that so-called normal people have when they read somebody else's expression, and how they can seem a little bit socially awkward. But he does say that everybody has a little bit of autism when it comes to reading cues. I love how he talks about oxytocin and serotonin and melatonin and just the chemical soup that makes up our brain. But I'm actually going to read the flaps of the book because it describes it much better than I ever could. Using a mix of experiential reportage, personal storytelling, and fresh scientific discovery, Steven Johnson describes how the brain works, its chemicals, structures, subroutines, and how these systems connect to the day-to-day realities of individual lives. For 100 years, he says, many of us have assumed that a most powerful routine of self-knowledge took the form of lying on a couch talking about our childhood. The possibility entertained in this book that you can follow another path in which learning about the brain's mechanics can widen one's self-awareness as powerfully as any therapy or meditation or drug. In Mind Wide Open, Johnson embarks on the path as his own test subject, participating in a battery of attention tests. He talks about that with the pictures, and that part really intrigued me. Attention tests, learning to control video games by altering brain waves, scanning his own brain with a 2 million fMRI machine, all in search of a modern question and answer the oldest question, who am I? Along the way, Johnson explores how we read other people, how the brain processes frightening events, and how we might rid ourselves of the scars and the memory that they leave. The neurochemistry behind love and sex, what it means that our brains are teeming with powerful chemicals, why music closely related to recreational drugs, why music moves us to tears, and where our breakthrough ideas come from. Johnson's clear, engaging explanation of the physical functions of the brain reveal not only the broad strokes of our aptitudes and fears, our skills and weakness, and our desires, but also the momentary brain phenomena that a whole human life comprises. Why, when hearing a tale of woe, do we sometimes smile inappropriately? He talks about that as well. That is very interesting, even though we don't want to. This Schadenfreude, of course. Why are some of us so bad at remembering phone numbers but brilliant at recognizing faces? Why does depression make us feel stupid? To read Mind Wide Open is to rethink family history, individual fate, and the very nature of self. To see that brain science is now personally transformative, a valuable tool for better relationships. And it's intriguing. He says that sometime in the future there's going to be a way for people to control just getting back onto another kind of, I think he was talking about theta waves. I can't remember what he said exactly in the book, but he mentioned a monk went to therapy. He couldn't meditate, so he was exposed to some kind of brainwave therapy, and he said he wasn't sure how effective that was going to be, because it's kind of like letting a cocaine addict have all the cocaine he wants, and it just, the efficacy of that is I don't know if it's helpful or harmful. It seems like it would be more of something detrimental than useful and constructive. I don't know. It's there wasn't an awful lot of. He does cite a lot of his findings on what he uncovered and discovered through becoming a guinea pig. But it's really quite intriguing. I just, like I said, the chapter on laughter, tickling, that kind of thing, and he stems that to our childhood. He said you can chalk it up to childhood, whether it was good or bad. It's just humor is a way of survival. And I thought, yeah, true. But I'm grateful that I have the mechanism, and my whole family's like this. We're very, very funny, and we often offset just bad situations with jokes, and it's just the way we are. We're tough cookies, but it's interesting. He describes how jokes are, how some people kind of get lost in translation, and I'm thinking about my dad's chiropractor. May his chiropractor rest in peace. He always said there is no laughter without pain, and I said I beg to differ. I mentioned an example of my dad and I sitting at the table, and we had a Chihuahua at the time. We inherited it, and I farted, and of course, you know, the dog went, and it, yeah, you had to have the final bark, so the final squeak, and it just, I laughed so hard. My dad and I were just busting a gut laughing. I said, you see, Jan? His name was Jan. That is how you have no pain when you laugh. And I thought, well, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what about embarrassment? Embarrassment's pain. But actually, he said that. And then I said, but Jan, there was no embarrassment. That was clearly funny. I mean, I didn't even blush. Because at the table, I'm with other people. I mean, if people are my friends and I happen to just kind of pass gas at an inappropriate time, I'd always excuse myself and then laugh about it, because, hey, everybody does it. Everybody toots, right? Better out than in, I always say. But it's a great book. It's very illuminating. It's revealing. And I'm glad I had a chance to actually delve into it and understand the psyche a little bit more, because it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more that they don't understand about the mind, and I'm interested in seeing what they discover in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, and I'm still going to be here, so I'm thinking, ooh, yeah, it'll be a brave new world. Aldous Huxley, he was right. But yeah, it'll be very fascinating to see what indeed the